All right, guys. In this video, we're going to go over skill development in terms of defense and developing a defenseman from the ground up, some skills and drills we can use to work on some of these skill sets, and kind of my mindset and philosophy on developing a defenseman. So we start feet up. We work on our feet, our hips, and then our hands. And we do that through a couple different drills, all while implementing our angle play, keeping in mind our body position during contact. And then at the end of the day, we have to remember that a good defenseman is good on the ball, off the ball, and with the ball. A lot of these drills that we're going to go through and kind of this skill development is going to be a lot of on the ball development. Off the ball development, they'll learn IQ wise, they'll learn by playing. Playing, putting them in a position where they see slides, they understand decision making, good and bad, and they just rep it out, and they'll learn from getting a ton of reps. And then with the ball stuff, defensemen that are great off the ground can handle the rock. Uh, at push transition and be a threat on the opposite end of the field are, down the line considered elite defensemen. So just keep that in mind in terms of stick work and, keeping them involved in stick work as much as possible. Um, so let's jump into it. First, I start off pretty granular when I think about developing a defenseman. So first, we're going to talk about how we break down on the ball. We're going to talk about a defensive posture being butt low, knees bent, chest up, head up. We're on the balls of our feet. We're nice and explosive when our levels are low. Most of the times you'll see in really tall defensemen at young ages, they stand straight up and they move with their knees locked and not in a defensive posture. So the first thing we're going to work on is how we break down on the ball, where our stick's placed, that 6 foot stick, right out in front of us in a guy's chest. So this will kind of just explain the drill. And then drills pretty simple. Cones, two cones, or lines of cones. You can have groups of guys if you're working with, 5+ defensemen. I would have, a cone and a line, and guys filled in, behind it. 2 to 3. We're looking to get a lot of reps here, but it's quite simply there's a cone straight out in front. Our defensemen are going to run out and first start off by working on our breakdowns. In these first couple clips here, we'll talk through what we want to see, right? Stick out in front. Our feet are staggered, right? Good way to, let's talk about our stick first. A good way to teach our stick being straight out in front of us. We're going to take our bottom hand or our butt end and we're going to put it in our hip pocket, right? So we don't want that thing right between our legs. We don't want it, straight behind us. We want that right in our hip pocket. Top hand in a comfortable length out in front. You don't want to be completely extended. You don't want to be too close, but a comfortable distance. And we want that thing straight out in front in his gut. We want to arrive with the skewer. So boom, if we arrive like this, that's considered a slap approach. We want that stick out in front the entire time. Now let's talk about our posture. He's got great defensive posture here, right? Butt's low, right? Knees bent, chest up, right? Head up, stick out in front, right? He's on the balls of his feet, but his feet are staggered. And we'll talk about why his feet are staggered in the next progression, which is a back pedal. Oop, pressing forward here. Right, but these guys are going to rep out just a simple breakdown. So they're going to run out to the cone, break, and hold, right? And the hold is for the coach to see, right, if their breakdown looks good. Is their stick out in front of them? Are they low, right? Are they able to be in a position where they're able to absorb contact here? If they're standing straight up, no bueno. If their feet are super wide, not good. If they're super tight together, not good. Um, right? So keep pressing. So the next progression, probably the most important in my opinion, for defensemen of all ages, uh, is the back pedal. And our ability to get from a breakdown into a back pedal as quickly as possible is going to put ourselves in a good position to win a one-on-one matchup. Why do we backpedal? Why do we drop step? Why do we get moving backwards? Right? If we have an attackman or a midfielder running straight at us and we are feet planted in the ground, waiting for them to get to us, make a move, and then try to turn, open, and run, we're never going to keep up. Right? So we want to make up speed going backwards. Right? So good breakdown mechanics, good breakdown mechanics, right? Feet staggered. We are pushing off that front foot and exploding backwards, right? And we want to take long strides backwards. Now, these cones are only 2, 3 yards apart, right? I don't want them backpedaling 5 yards, right? 2 to 3 back pedals just to get going backwards, right? Is where we're gonna make our money. Now, in terms of footwork, angle play, all these drills I'm going to go over, right? They are layered on top of each other, right? So that first breakdown drill, breakdown progression, we worked on breakdowns, right? Backpedaling, so some footwork in there, body posture, right? That's going to carry over into our next drill, which is the grid, right? We use the grid as a footwork efficiency drill. Right. And when we talk about footwork efficiency, we want to take the least amount of steps to get from A to B. Right. We want to work efficiently with our footwork. Um, it's going to be there's going to be 4 cones set up in 90 degrees of a central cone in the middle. Each player is going to run out to a cone, break down, backpedal into the middle, turn and open up either to the cone to the left or to the right, and do and repeat the same thing. So here we're working on keeping our posture low, right? Breaking down, backpedaling, right? And then our steps out of our back pedal, right? The angle in which we take out of our back pedal, which here is going to be a 90-degree angle. Right? Stick out in front, head low, right? We're pushing off that outside foot. So he's going to the left. So we're pushing off that right foot in the middle, right? He's not pitter-pattering his feet on the inside. That's big key here. These guys aren't pitter-pattering their feet, right? When they get to the middle, they're getting to the middle, pushing off that outside foot and exploding to the next cone, right? That's footwork efficiency. If we're pitter-pattering our feet, right, that is not efficient footwork. I'd stick out in front the whole time. Boom. Right, we're exploding out. All right, when I do this, 2 to 3 reps to the left, 2 to 3 reps to the right, right, and we'll move on to the next drill. All right, if you got 6 or 7 defensemen, break it up into 2 groups, and just keep it rolling. We want to get reps, but we don't want to take up too much time, doing this drill. So we have enough cones. All right, keep it rolling through. If they don't have cones and we have gloves, good. Put your gloves down. All right, you need five gloves. Good. So we worked on footwork. We worked on our breakdowns into our back pedals, right? Efficient footwork, right? Getting out of our back pedals. Right. Next is we're going to work on our hips, right? Your ability to flip your hips, right? As an athlete, especially as a defenseman across, right? It's key. Being able to go from a back pedal, right, to flipping our hips to a sprint, to flipping our hips to a shuffle, right, to flipping our hips. Those are the main type of movements you're going to make as a defenseman. Right. So this drill is called the Bengal drill. Right. This drill is set up to do it with no sticks and hands. Right. Our cones are set up in the shape of a trapezoid. So we have a straight line up top, and then we have an angle from, let's say, this yellow cone to this orange cone at a 45-degree angle, right? And the same thing from this orange cone to this orange cone. Guys are going to Guys are going to sprint the straight line from yellow to orange and from orange to yellow. They're going to sprint the straight line, right? And then once they come out of the sprint, they are flipping their hips to the middle, right? And shuffling on that 45-degree angle down and back, right? So we're just working on constantly flipping our hips, right? Going from a shuffle to flipping our hips, right? To going through a sprint and flipping our hips, right? Big thing here, hip flip, right? And our lateral movement. We're getting a couple of reps at work at each specific skill because the defenseman, your ability to move lateral and your ability to flip your hips are key. All right, we'll look at that again. All right, staying low as we move laterally. All right, being able to push off that inside foot and wrap that opposite hip around. Right. When I talk to my defensemen, I explain we have to flip our hips violently, violently. Right. The faster you flip your hips, right, the better positioning you're going to put yourself in to win a one-on-one matchup where the contact happens. Right. So when we use these where are we going to use this hip flip? Where are we going to use this Bengals drill? At GLE, when we're running up the rail, flipping our hips, right? When we are trailing a guy going from top down, he wants to roll, we have to flip our hips back around, right? Defending the middle of the field, we have to flip our hips, right? After a breakdown. So we use this skill constantly as defensemen. So great drill to mix in, with your older guys that are picking up the poles for the first time and actually, learning the skill of defense. Three cone footwork. We're talking about our approaches on the top side. So this is footwork above the cage. We're going to be in the high wings. Um, We're going to be in the high wings, three cones. So a cone that we're approaching, a cone 5 yards away, on a 45-degree angle coming from the inside. That's where our defenseman's coming from, right? And then a cone right towards the top side of the field. So if we're looking at the net back here, right, this cone's towards the top side, right? They're going to approach this cone straight ahead. Right now, when we talk about approaches, we want to talk about approaches to the point where we are taking away top side. Well, we're taking away top side. Now, best way to explain to a young defenseman, how do I approach to take away top side? Okay, we could talk about our shoulders, right? And we talk about our hips, right? Hips need to be higher up, right, than right our attacking offensive guy. How do we keep their hips higher up? Well, on this side of the field, right, as they get older, offensive coaches, right, coaches in general on the offensive end will teach sticks to the inside. So on this side of the field, right, players will see lefties, right? And on the opposite side, players will see righties, right? The easiest way to keep myself higher than them is to put my offensive guy's stick head between my feet, right? That automatically puts your hips higher than him, right? If that's too much or too complicated for our young defenseman to understand, right? On this side of the field, we don't want to get beat over our right shoulder, right? When we're defending lefties, we don't want to get beat over our right shoulder. So we want to make sure that right shoulder, right, is higher, right, than our offensive guy and vice versa. I want to make sure my left shoulder is higher than the offensive guy when I'm defending a righty in the opposite high wing. Again, we're talking about layering skills, right? We're going to talk about breaking down on the ball, right? Approach, a breakdown on the ball, and then immediately we're getting into a back pedal. Now, right, a three cone footwork up top, we're talking about angle play out of this, right? We talk about pylon position a lot, or I talk to my defensemen about pylon position. So when we break down on our guy up top, right, there are pylons all over the field. And there's pylons where the midline meets the sideline. There's pylons in the corner of the field. And so six pylons, if we imagine, there's a pylon in the middle of the box, right? So if we approach on a 45-degree angle, hips square to that pylon, right? Our main goal is to keep guys out in the middle of the field, And so we were backpedaling, approaching, taking away topside with our approach. Right? Does that keep happening? All right. First progression is a back pedal, right? And then we're going to open up down the alley. Now, right, we're still staying pylon position, right? When we open up down the alley, we want our hips square to the pylon, right? As we trail our offensive guy's back hip, right? That's the angle we want to take down towards the pylon, right? Stick out in front still, right? Back pedal, right? So we have now a couple drills layered on top of each other. We have the grid, or we have the breakdown progression, right? Breakdown, back pedal. We have the grid, right? Breakdown, back pedal, open up on a 90 degree. So if we're going 45 angle to 45 degree, right? Or pylon to pylon, we are opening up on a 90-degree angle, right? So we're layering, right, some of our drills now to more drills. We're going to add on top of it. All right, next progression. We are going to open up to the middle of the field. We are going to open up to the middle of the field. Boom, open up. Right, this is our Bengals drill. If we can see this, we are going to open up our hips, get into a run, right, and then flip our hips back to pylon position. Right, we are not just going to backpedal, right, and shuffle, right, to take away top side. Right, if a midfielder is running downhill at us, we won't be able to shuffle and take that away. We got to turn, run, open up our hips, and then close them back off, take away top side. Now, my higher level defensemen, 7, 8 defensemen, they can understand this concept. When I turn my hips back, right, when I close them off, right, our angle of our hips, right, is important as well. Right? If we're closing it off too much, where our hips are squared to the sideline, we're giving them a alley or a straight shot right down the alley to the cage. Now, if I open up my or I don't close my hips enough and they're squared to the midline, right, I'm not taking away top side from that dodging offensive guy. Right, so hips back to pylon position. Right, when we get going down back down the alley is the next progression here. One more rep. Right, turn, open up, close our hips back off. Now we're gonna put it together. Right, back pedal, open up, close our hips back off. Now, all right, now the next one, we're gonna put the next progression. All right, we're going back to the middle. All right. Break down, back pedal, open up, close our hips back off. Now we got a guy going back down the alley. All right. These two steps right here are super important. All right. Out of a roll, we never want to cross our feet and just run right away. Right. We want to get into shuffles. All right. So it's a side shuffle, side shuffle. We call them safety steps. Right. Then we are going to turn and run with our offensive guy. So again, break down, back pedal, close off those hips, 45. All right, two safety steps. All right, get down the alley with our guy. All right, next progression. We're gonna get down the alley, all right, and defend a rollback. Boom. We're gonna defend a rollback to the middle of the field. All right, open our hips up, all right, turn and run, and then close it off and keeping guys back down the alley or down the alley. All right, now three cone approaches. This is another drill, right, to defend guys above the cage. All right, we have three cones set up. All right. Guys start back to back. All right. Top guy's an offensive guy. He's got three cones to choose from. All right. My defensive guy's getting down around the cone right in front of him. Now we got three cones for a reason. All right. Let's say he picks this higher cone. All right. My defenseman has to adjust his hips to take away top side. Same thing with this lower cone. Right. If he goes around this lower cone, I still have to adjust my hips, right? Make sure my right shoulder is higher than him on this side, right? I want everything going down the alley, right? Stress that for these young guys. I want to keep guys out of the middle. I want them going down the alley at all costs. Even if I'm getting smoked down the alley, right? We have to teach them to get the ball down the alley. All right, so offensive guy, all right, no sticks, they're dodging hard. All right. Make this fun for young guys. All right. Fifth, sixth graders, make it fun for them. All right. Make it a competition. All right. Get them hyped up for the winner. All right. Especially if like the offensive guy runs by them. All right. Get them hyped up. Defensively, same thing. If they're winning their matchup, they're keeping guys out of the middle, they're getting beat down the alley, that's okay. Hype them up. All right. All right. We're gonna adjust our hips. All right. Getting guys down the alley. Last one here, I think by defenseman. Get smoked to the middle. We want to teach patience, right? Especially up top, especially with our footwork, right? Patient, patient, patient. All right. I'm teaching them. I want to take away the middle. I'm okay getting beat down the alley. Right. I'm patient. Right. I want to be patient and find his back hip. If not, we're gonna get smoked to the middle. And the more we get smoked to the middle, the harder it is to help. Right. And the more things open up offensively when our guys get beat to the middle. Some youth players running through it. Right. So you could do this drill, right, at both high wing spots. You could do it mid wing, right? And you could do it at GLE behind the cage. Um, so don't just think it's an up top body position drill. Good. Now, once we've drilled and repped out, right, taking away the middle, our breakdowns, our angle play, our footwork from up top. Once we get guys going down the alley, we want to be able to keep them down the alley, right? And defend the rollback, right? Because rollbacks to the middle of the field, right, are killers. So this next drill is trail position drill. So we're going to start locked up, right, with our offensive guy on the high wings, right? And a key here, um, we are okay, right? And it's preferred, right, when a Dodger is going from top down, midline to end line, right, to be in a trail position. We want to be a step behind our guy. If we ever get hip to hip or in front of our guys as they're dodging top down, we are going to be in trouble, right? Open ourselves up to roll back. So we want to stay engaged in the back hip and a defensive posture, right? Being able to speed up and slow down with our offensive guy, right? And feel when he is going to roll. If he's going to slow up, chop his feet, right? We can already tell he's going to roll, right? And we want to stay in that trail position. So this is what the body trail position drill looks like. Offensive guys, they're just running a straight line from top down. Right? They could slow their speed up, right? They could change up their levels, right? But our defenseman is going to stay on his back hip, right, in a nice defensive posture the whole time. We don't want to mirror or mimic, right, the offensive guy's posture. And so we'll go back to this first rep. Boom. Hand on the back hip. We're staying engaged, right? We're able to chop our feet, right, and stay in that trail position the entire time. Now, the next progression is we're going to ask our offensive guys, our dummy offensive guys, to roll back at some point in between two cones, right? And it's the defenseman's job, right, to flip his hips and take away the middle of the field and keep them down the alley. Defend the rollback. Boom. Great posture right there. And our hips get back up field. All right, little key here. Our head gets in front. All right, we're in a nice defensive posture there. Some youth guys repping it out. Good, staying on that back hip, staying engaged, staying in that trail posture. Right. We could do it from GLE too. Right. We at GLE, as guys are dodging up, right, we are going to stay engaged on their hip. And I'll talk through what that looks like at GLE in one of these upcoming slides. Now, we talked about defending from top down. Now we're going to talk about defending from bottom up. So behind the cage, right, to the front of the cage. There's a couple things I talk through, when we start drilling and talk about our footwork, our body position, our angle play from the back of the cage to the front of the cage. I first, um, give them the spiel. Defensemen, really elite defensemen, don't need to be the biggest, fastest, strongest dudes on the field. But if you're not going to be any of those, you got to be the smartest. And the smartest meaning you need to know your angles when you are on ball. And we talked about our angles from up top, but our angles defending behind the cage are a different ball game. Right. So a couple key points or key let's say landmarks I talk about when we talk about defending from behind the cage were the two rails in the back of the cage, and we'll talk through it here. The two rails in the back of the cage. I call them the rails. Where they meet, I call it the apex of the cage. We talk through the crease, right? And then we talk GLE. So those are all landmarks I'll mention to my defensemen as they go through skill development from the back of the cage. So this first drill is called run the rail. Right. So when we talk about angle play from the back of the cage to the front of the cage, right, we talk about geometry, the fastest point from point A to point B, right, is a straight line. We want to use our angles from the back of the cage to the front of the cage to our advantage. We have built-in angles, right, with the cage. Right? Those rails are straight lines. Right? If we stay as close to the rails as possible when we are running from back of the cage to the front of the cage, that's our best angle, right? To get to the front of the cage. While an offensive guy has to go around the cage, we can cut through, right? And that is our angle that we want to take right along the rail. So this first drill called run the rail. We're going to start feet straddling the crease, the back of the crease. We are going to turn and open up either to the left or to the right. And when we talk about running the rail, we quite literally are talking run the rail. Don't side shuffle the rail. Don't side run the rail. Turn and sprint up the rail. Right? It should only take one or two steps. Now, geez. Now, when we talk about layering, right? Drills, right? Your ability to go from a sprint to flipping our hips, right, is that Bengals drill that we're revisiting. This is where this comes into play from behind the cage. Now we're going to turn, run up the rail. Now, next key here, when we get to GLE, right, we want to flip our hips and get our hips to the most optimal position for winning a contact battle at GLE, which is pylon position, right? 45-degree angle, right? Our hips are facing the pylon, right? If a guy tries to dodge top side, right? Your ability to just side shuffle and stay pylon position, guide him up and away. If he tries to roll underneath, right? Your ability to find that back hip, right? Stay in pylon position, guide him to the back towards the cage or back under the cage to the apex of the cage, is a lot easier as opposed to if my hips are square to the end line, I'm giving up top side just underneath. If my hips are square to the sideline, I'm unable to take away a dodger's ability to get top side with my body. Right. So pylon position, right, is the optimal position for contact at GLE. I'm gonna let this rep out a little. All right, we're going to turn, open up, run, and at GLE, we're violently flipping our hips. Boom. Stick out in front, turning and running. Right, violently flipping our hips to pylon position. If I were out there, I would say, Brody, get your hips to pylon position, not too far, right, to the end line. Now, this next progression here. All right, we're working on getting back down the rail and back up. All right, you defend the guy really well at one side of GLE. He's continuing his dodge. All right, back around the crease. Boom. We want to move down and back up the rail instead of hopping the cage. We never want to hop the cage. All right, that's how guys get caught up, fall over, tripping the net. All right. Good. So now out of the back of the cage, we're going to continue with CODs and cars. There's just change of direction drills in the back of the cage. Now, as a Dodger, putting myself in the mindset of a Dodger, they are taught when they're approaching the cylinder or the apex of the cage, behind the cage, they're taught to put in a change of direction. Get guys moving one way over the cage, right, and turn and run back the other way. So this is just working on our footwork and our angle play as they change direction, behind the cage. Also, it works on our angle play as we approach guys outside the cylinder of the cage. And so we'll see here, they're 5 to 10 yards outside the cylinder of the cage. They're not lined up directly behind X, right? So not every dodge is going to take place directly behind X. And so we want to get our guys comfortable, right, defending out in the wide corners. Doesn't need to be, so wide here, right? But approaching a guy that's dodging it from the wide corner, right? And then simple rule, right? We want everything going behind the cage, right? Why do we want every dodge going behind the cage? Right? Quite simply, they can't score from behind the cage, right? They can score when they get top side, right? If they take you out into the wide corner and dodge top side right away, a lot of things open up in terms of passes, right? And shots on cage. So we want everything going behind the cage. So we want to line up, approach our guy, and take away the top side of the field, right? As an option for them. We want to make this an option for them, dodging behind the cage. Now, again, layering drills, right? It starts with a breakdown, back pedal, right? We're going to open up on a 90-degree angle, right? That's our grid drill, right? To the apex of the cage. We get to the apex of the cage, right? Guy puts on the burners, right? And continues his dodge up the opposite side. We run the rail, right? When we get to GLE, right, we get our hips to pylon position. That was well done by Darrell here. Again, pushing off that outside foot, running the rail, and sitting down in a nice defensive posture, in pylon position at GLE. Boom. All right, Brody's overturning his hips there. I would tell him get his hips to pylon position. All right, next here. So we call those cars. All right, so we're not hopping the cage back there. Next one are called CODs, change of directions. Now, this is a drill, same setup. We're going to break down, back pedal, open up to the apex of the cage. Now, this is to mimic a dodger changing direction right behind the cage. All right. When we change direction behind the cage, we want to drop our hips. Right. We want to be in front of the apex. We don't want to be over top of the cage. Right. We want to push off our outside foot. And when we get up the rail, we want to run the rail. That is our angle from back to front. Right. Flipping our hips to pylon position at GLE. Right. 2 good reps from these guys, staying low and change the direction. All right, now, right, going from the back of the cage to the front of the cage, we got our angle play down, we got our footwork down. All right, now let's talk about when we get to GLE and the point of contact. All right, our first priority when we get to GLE is to get our hips into that pylon position. All right, once our hips are in a good position to win a matchup, our feet, our hands, right, our stick follow, and we're in a we give ourselves a great opportunity to win a contact battle at GLE. All right. Our hands should be on a guy's hip, not up on his shoulders, not down below his waist. Our head, right? This is a big one, right? Especially for our seventh and eighth graders as they progress through this. Right. Think tackling in football, right? Form tackle, head in front, wrap up. Obviously, we're not wrapping up, right? But if our head is in the front of a guy as he's dodging, he's not going to be able to run through our whole body to get top side. Now, if a guy is behind us or our head is behind a dodging offensive guy, right, now all he has to do is run through my hands, and that's a lot easier. Right, so we talk head in front um, and taking away top side with our body. Right, now, if we have pads out in practice, this is a good drill to do. If not, right, we could do it without sticks. Offensive guys can put their hands behind their back because if they're young guys, they tend to put their hands out in front like an Oklahoma drill. But if we have pads, that's great. Give them to our defensemen, let them use them. Offensive guys, first progression here. Let's talk about cone setup. There's going to be 2 cones, right? We're starting at GLE. Offensive guys, they step behind because if we did our job, we ran the rail, we took the optimal angle from back of the cage to front of the cage, we're going to end up meeting this guy at GLE, probably a step up, a step in front of him. Offensive guys are on the outside cone, defensive guys are on the inside cone. Offensive guys' job on the first progression here is to simply dodge topside, right? Dodge topside. No rolls, no hitches, right? No step away. So we're just simply running into the pad, right? Giving them contact and trying to drive topside. Right. Defensively, I teach first, right? We're getting our hips to the right spot, our hips to pylon position, right? 45-degree angle, corner of the field. Butt low, right? We're on the balls of our feet. We have a wide stance, right? The wider we are, and the lower we are, the more explosive and stronger we are, right, as defensemen. Then our hands are at his hip, right? And our head is in front, right? And we're gonna rep this out here. Right? If our hips don't get around, this offensive guy is gonna drive right through us. Boom, hips to pylon position. We're sitting nice and low. Right? Next thing here, especially with the pad, right? I'm not extending my arms out. My arms are locked at 90 degrees and I'm ready to absorb contact here. Right? If I get here, right, fully extended, I'm not strong and I start to lunge, and bad things happen there. Right? As a defenseman at GLE, I'm absorbing contact. I'm not giving contact. I'm absorbing contact. And we got to teach our guys, especially in the seventh and eighth grade, right? It's not a bench pressing competition. Right? It's a squatting competition. We would be nice and strong at our base, and we don't want to row the boat. Right? We don't want to try to push guys out. Right? Because as we push guys out of GLE, right, they disengage with contact, they free their hands, good things happen on their end, bad things happen on our end. Watch a couple more reps here. All right, hips around. If our hips don't get around, we're getting smoked topside. All right, next progression here. For our seventh and eighth graders, we want to rep different dodges. We want to rep different dodges. All right, so the first one was just topside. Second progression is going to be a dodge topside, right? Bounce away and re-attack. Right? Some of our guys on the defensive end that are playing offensive dummy dodgers might not get it, right? But let them rep it out. We want to dodge topside to start, bounce away, and then re-dodge topside. Right now, defending this, right? First, we want to take away topside with pylon position. Right? As he steps away, we are not stepping out right at the offensive guy. We are simply keeping our hips moving topside, readjusting our hips, staying topside in pylon position, right? And absorbing contact as he re-engages trying to dodge topside. Boom. All right, that's a great rep right there by Durrell. Boom, another great rep. Right? The last progression, I don't have it on here, right? But our offensive guys are going to dodge up to 5 and 5 and then roll under, right? Now, right, we are going back to that body trail position. Right, first, we're going to take away top side with pylon position, head in front, taking away that top side dodge to start. Now, as the guy rolls, right, we want to find that back hip and we want to guide him behind the cage. Right, still with our hips square to the pylon and that shuffling motion. If we ever get hip to hip, right, or in front of a guy, right, going top down, which a rollback is a top down, right, we're open ourselves up to the rollback to the middle of the field, which is an angle we don't want as a shot. Right? Goalies don't want to see that, right? And it's a lot harder to defend and slide to, right? So as a guy drives up from top or from bottom up, right, X up, right, and goes to roll underneath, we want to find the back hip, right, and keep him going underneath. Now, next, let's talk about sliding. I could talk for days about sliding, decision making, body position. But first, we want to talk about kind of the rules of sliding and when we're going to slide. So when I explain to young defensemen, what is sliding? Sliding is when we leave our guy to go help our on-ball defenseman. He's either out of position, right? It's a unfair matchup or a favorable matchup for the offense that's going to need support. And we are going to do that by leaving our guy to go double the ball, basically. Um, when are we the slide guy? When our guy is inside. Right? We want to be a crease sliding defense. Right? Offenses rarely stay in an open set. The older you get, they'll be balanced. There'll be someone either clearing through or already in there. You are hot when your guy is on the crease. Right? If your guy ever clears through to the crease, you are hot. Um, and your job is to slide to the ball. Uh, Now let's talk about body position. We talk about 102 position when we're inside. So we're thinking 10 and 2 with our feet. That's 102. Right? I'm able to open up my hips, right, to ball side sideline. Right? So whatever side the ball is, right? So let's say the ball's top right, my hips, right, my butt is facing that sideline. My feet are pointed 10 and 2. I'm able to see the guy I'm covering and the ball that I'm sliding to. And so we want to be able to open up our hips. If we're ever square to the guy that we're sliding to, that's probably bad news before we slide. When we talk about sliding, we must slide at a positive angle. The whole job of a slide guy is to neutralize the dot, make him not a threat anymore. So when we slide, we want to slide at a positive angle. All right, so positive angles, we want to drop down to slide up at a positive angle, and this drill is going to kind of work on that. How we arrive, right? We have a 6 foot pole. When we slide as a defenseman with a 6 foot pole, we want that thing out in front. The first thing that gets to a guy that we slide to is our stick head. We call that a skewer approach. Now, in this drill, right, we have 2 cones on the inside. We could do 2 sides going at once. Our defensive guys or our slide guys are going to start on this top cone, right? They're going to drop themselves down to this bottom cone so we can slide at a positive angle. There's going to be 2 cones, 10 yards above the cage at a 45-degree angle. This red cone is the one we are going to slide to, right? Now, the only thing I'm going to say about Darrell's rep here is before we slide, we never just want to commit our hips and run at a guy. Right? We want to take safety steps. Now, recall our footwork in the top of the cage. Right? Safety steps are basically shuffles. Right? Uh, if I'm a slide guy and I commit my hips right away, and the first step I take is turn my hips facing the guy I'm sliding, I've already committed my hips. Right? And I'm not going to be able to efficiently stop my feet and get back to my guy if I don't need to slide right away. So a shuffle, we can hard jab at a guy. Um, we can read the play an extra 2 steps before we have to commit to the dodge. And if we don't have to commit to the dodge, right, we can efficiently turn and find our guy and recover back inside. When we slide, we are going to slide, stick out in front or hands out in front, break down on the cone, right? And then the angle that we take out of that, right, towards the corner of the field. We want to guide Dodgers, right, down to the pylon. All right, good rep here by Nathan. Inside butt to ball side sideline, stick out in front. When we arrive to the ball, we don't want to stop our feet. All right, we want to keep them moving. All right, boom. And we want to guide a guy down towards the corner of the field. Right. So a couple things we worked on here, right? On ball presence, right? Our angle play, our body position, our footwork, right? Big keys for that. We want to take away the middle of the field with our approach, right? We want to keep guys down the alley and out of the middle of the field with our body position on ball, right? From the back of the cage, right? Our footwork and our angle play, we're going to run the rail from the back of the cage to the front of the cage. When we get to GLE, our hips need to be in the optimal position, which is GLE or which is pylon position, corner of the field, right? And then we're going to work on defending, the contact battle at GLE with that GLE positioning. Pads, no pads, however you want to rep it. Um, you know, get get the kids um, seeing contact, right? Getting dodged, right? Whether it's against offensive guys or against their own defensive guys they're going against, right? The more they see bodies in front of them being able to react, the more they're going to be able to see the footwork, right? And then be able to slowly start to apply it to their game and how they defend, right? And that footwork becomes muscle memory, right? And then sliding, that's off the ball stuff. There's only so much you can do in terms of decision making when you're sliding to cones. But talking through the basics of, when we're hot, our responsibility as a hot guy. how we slide and repping out the fundamentals, our our safety steps before we slide, sliding with a positive angle. Those are things you can rep out with cones, right? But the more they see sliding in live action, the more they're going to get comfortable with the good decisions they make and learn from the bad decisions they make. This is my kind of startup to um, how I build up a defenseman, and then all of these drills can be layered upon, right? You add dodgers to the sliding, right? You add multiple dodges that you're defending at GLE. Then all of this starts to blend over into live game reps. Thanks, guys.